Imagine not being able to read the paper because your hands were shaking. Imagine not being able to read newsprint as your world faded to black. The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. With your host, Lee Martin, and co-host, Florence Myers-McSwine.
Welcome to this week's National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana show. And I am your co-host, Florence Myers-McSwine, and we're sitting here with your host, Lee Martin. And Lee, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. And I am looking forward to our show today. But first, I really would like to talk about our services that we have for the National Federation of the Blind. It has a service that we provide for blind and print challenged individuals, those that have problems turning pages, those that have problems reading print, and even those that are deaf-blind now can access this free service. And Florence, I tell you, it is a fantastic service and people are enjoying it, not only here throughout the state of Indiana, but around the country. And, you know, people are reading it around the world now. You know, as long as they have the internet connection, you can read the NFB Newsline anywhere around the world. So let's talk about some of the publications that we have.
Well, we're talking about the newspapers or magazines or both. So, well, we can talk about the publications and the TV Guide listings and Walmart Target circulars. I want to basically say that NFB Newsline, to me, really has it going on. And, you know, I really enjoy the magazines. I read the newspapers. Indianapolis Star here in Indianapolis. And I love reading the Reader's Digest, Lee, and Guideposts. You know, that's one of my favorites. I always talk about that one.
Well, let's don't forget about you reading the AARP magazine, too.
Yes, I'm a senior. I'm a proud senior. So, yes, I love reading the AARP magazine, and it tells me, gives me information about discounts and things like that, and I utilize that. I do.
And, you know, job listings is another feature that is very fantastic on the service. Mm-hmm. So just pay attention to our commercials and all the information that's there. You'll hear it, and you'll be able to read it as well. So those that can see it to read, they'll be able to read that information and get in contact with us. So we'll be right back with our show today, and we have another great guest today that I'm certain that you do not want to miss what she has to say. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I love to read. I've always loved to read. Reading takes me places I'm not able to go by air, bus, or car. I plan on reading every newspaper Newsline has.
No more did I have to wonder about the rest of the story when disaster struck. I could open the local paper for that town and find out. And when I discovered that NFB Newsline could be a powerful tool for TV watching, listing all my favorite channels and what was on when, I was most definitely hooked.
I'm Danny Wayne Beamer, Program Manager of the Elder Blind Program at the Will Center in Terre Haute, Indiana. I introduced the NFB Newsline to seniors in 13 southwestern counties in Indiana. I also utilize the NFB Newsline for my radio station public affairs shows. The NFB Newsline, experience it today.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
Wow, I scored a touchdown when I found sports on NFB Newsline.
I enjoy reading TV Guide listings on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind.
It's free.
Well, welcome back to our show, and I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our special guest today, Dr. Yvette Simmons-Reid, who is a professor at Ball State University. Dr. Reid,
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. It's awesome.
Well, I tell you what, it's so exciting when we met you.
It was, and she's brought somebody with her.
I did. This is my guide dog, Brady, and he is 2 years old. He turned 2 on Valentine's Day, so I've had him for about a year.
Well, we welcome you and Brady to our show.
Thank you.
And I'm not going to let you get away with it, but why did you name your dog Brady?
I actually did not name him and did not associate his name with New England Patriots. But my son is a big New England fan, and when I called home and told him that I had my guide dog, that I went to Leader Dogs, and I told him that my guide dog's name was Brady, and he just bust out laughing. I said, "What's so funny?" He said, "Tom, Brady, Mom." I was like, oh my gosh. So, yeah, and normally when I introduce him here in Indiana, people's like, well, we'll just call him something else, or, you know. But yeah, he was born and raised, he was raised in Boston. So she named him after Tom Brady. It's when he won the Super Bowl, the last.
Well, let's just go ahead and jump on into this here. For our viewers and those that are listening, we all on the stage are blind, and you talked about Leader Dog training. Can you expound on that just a little bit, because certain people don't know exactly what you were talking about when you said Leader Dog training. How does that go about? How do you become?
Absolutely. There are several organizations or schools that train individuals who are visually impaired and blind, or also deafblind, to use service dogs to travel. So Leader Dogs is located in Rochester, Michigan, and it's a beautiful campus. They have they also teach orientation and mobility, so it's a way to provide independence. I've had dogs in the past, and when I retired my dogs, I had 2 other dogs. When I had to retire them, I went back to using a cane, and I felt very confined in new spaces. And so I was pretty excited when I was able to take some time out of work and go get Brady. It's about a month training, and they train you and the dog together. Of course, the dog's already trained when you get them, but it was great.
Okay. Now, as a blind citizen, how long have you been coping with blindness?
I lost my vision at around 10 years old. When I turned 9, I have a twin. So when I turned 9, my retina began to tear, and I went through several surgeries, I think 9 or 10, my parents said, but they weren't able to save my vision. So for more than 40 years now.
Okay. Now your twin, however, is sighted, correct?
No, actually, and I said I had a twin and didn't finish that. My twin is now blind. She lost her vision, though, later in life, around 19. She had glaucoma and had to have a cornea transplant and some other things. We were premature, and at that time they were using incubators to help premature babies survive, and so the light from that incubator affected our eyesight.
Okay.
So.
Dr. Reed, tell us a little bit about you. Where are you from? Are you from the Indianapolis area? Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, so home of the Browns. I'm a big football fan. So, yeah, I am the youngest of 11 children. I have 10 sisters and 1 brother. I have more than 30, 40 nephews and nieces. We have a pretty large family. I, at the age of 15, 16, I started attending the School for the Blind in Columbus, Ohio, and I have lived there ever since. So my parents, once my twin sister and I started high school, we found that the services that were available at the high school level were very different, even though we had a in-service teacher who would help us. At that time, they, I can't remember the name of what they called them at that time, but we had a teacher that we can go see and get support from. We were mainstreamed. The services and supports that we were receiving from the general ed teachers were very different, and being an honor student, I was very unhappy with some of the accommodations that were being provided, and so my parents really advocated for us to attend the School for the Blind, which actually is not the least restrictive environment, that the law requires, but the fact that we were not getting the supports and services in the public schools, we were able to go to the School for the Blind, and I graduated from there and moved on to obtain my degrees from The Ohio State University. That's where I've obtained all of my degrees. I've taught in Columbus, the city schools, at the School for the Blind, before moving over to to become the program manager at the Niswonger Center on the Ohio State University campus. It's the University Center of Excellence on Developmental Disabilities. So I managed a federal grant there to develop programming for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And then I was offered the position at Ball State as an assistant professor. So that's kind of my life. I have 2 children. One, Lee, I think I shared with you, is a veteran. And then I have a 20-year-old, so one 29 and one 20.
I'm kind of glad you cleared that up when you said share it with me. It's a scary feeling.
No, that's funny.
Yeah, but yes, that's great. He's a veteran as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And, does any other of your siblings or family members have coping with sight loss? Or?
As I said, my twin is blind. She's an Ohio blind vendor. And I have my nephew only can see out of one eye. So we have various different challenges with vision in our family. But no one totally blind.
Okay. Now, I know it had to be an experience when you lost your sight at 9 years old, and then, your sister at that time, she was sighted. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a short pause, and we're going to come back and try to dive into that a little bit, how that transitioned, when she lost her sight.
Okay.
So we'll be right back, so stay tuned for us on National Federation of the Blind Newsline Show.
I am a blind vendor, and one of the things that I truly miss is reading Vending Times magazine.
Hoosiers can hear Indiana magazines, circulars, national magazines, and information from across the globe. Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
It is a fantastic service.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
As I travel the nation, I read NFB Newsline.
I live in Valparaiso, Indiana, and I listen to my local news on NFB Newsline.
As a student, I enjoy reading current events on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today.
Welcome back to our show, and we're just going to continue our conversation with Dr. Reed. Dr. Reed, I am impressed. I am. I know that you hear that quite often. You mentioned that you lost your sight at the age of 9, but what I also heard you say was you were an honor student.
Yes.
And so from the age of 9 until you started School for the Blind. How were you educated?
Well, again, my sister and I attended the public schools and rode the yellow bus back and forth to school. And I think the biggest impact on me was probably my family, being the youngest. Of course, my siblings were very protective of us, but the one thing they did, they always included us in whatever we were doing, whether it's racing, on the sidewalk, running, competing with someone in racing. They would, you can compete, and they'll grab, hold on, and or learning how to, cook, or whatever the deal was. I remember my dad being so fearful of us being on the stove. But of course, my siblings weren't going to have it. There was no, we weren't going to be sitting around and making them do everything, So, they always included us in everything. And it made a big difference in my life. In terms of school, we were, had a very good itinerant teacher who made sure we had what we needed and would advocate, and this is at the elementary and middle school levels, would advocate with the general ed teachers to make sure they got the materials so we had them on time, would spend a lot of time making sure we had what we needed. And so that really made a big difference, and also pushed us out to, and for me, really expected me to do well. Expected my sister to do well, and pushed us out to do so. I was in the National Honor Society, vice president of student council in middle school, and really enjoyed those years.
So, as you travel along the trail to success, which you've accomplished being, Dr. Reed. When you were facing transitioning into the employment world, where we know that the unemployment rate for people that are blind and people with disabilities hovers around 70%. And as our national president, Mark Riccobono, indicates that too many people face systemic discrimination. And it's so true for us. And then there's also stats out there that states that people of color receive still the least amount of services with education and job opportunities. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, of course, my thoughts are my thoughts and does not represent any particular
that's a good
university
disclaimer.
or anything like that. I think that's absolutely the case. As I went through school and found a tremendous amount of success. Of course, following what they tell you, you do well, get good grades, you can get scholarships. I went through my entire undergraduate program with scholarships and the grants that were afforded to us because we were low income. But I did not have to take out student loans in undergrad because of the scholarships and things that I had earned. So, leaving college, I thought I had all the skills that I needed to, be prepared for the workforce. I had participated in independent studies, being in the classroom beyond what was expected of students in our program. However, I got dealt a big blow that, at the first opportunity, I really had a great desire to work in urban settings. And so I, along with my peers, started submitting applications in the suburban settings in the area, and attended the job fair, but did not get a response. In fact, I helped some my peers complete their applications and that kind of thing, but I got no offers. In fact, at the job fair, it's usually pretty crowded there, and when I went up to the particular gentleman who was there from HR from one of the districts, his response was, "How about you give me a call, and you don't have to wait in this line. You can just give me a call in my office." And of course, being naive, I was like, "Okay, great." I had already had met with his colleague who told me to tell them that at the job fair. Well, it made no matter. When I contacted him after the job fair, they told me they weren't hiring. So even after explaining, that the HR, person had referred me and told me to give him a call, they said, "Oh, well, I'm sorry, we're on a hiring freeze." And that was just like a week or so later, when I finally actually got to talk to the person that told me that at the job fair. So it was very difficult. Again, I went back and spoke to one of my advisors about what was going on, and because I had 0 offers. In fact, she advocated for me, and I got my first job was as a long-term sub in the public schools, and then I was hired on as full-time. But like I said, that was a real blow.
After all the studies and all the accolades and achievements that you had, you've done everything that you could possibly do. And once again, the preconceived notions that run systemic through our society about people and our capabilities. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we come back, the word disabilities and the language use and how it impacts us. So we'll be right back. We're going to come right back and talk with Dr. Reed. As you see, it's a very interesting journey, and we'll be right back.
National Federation of the Blind knows that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or your future. Every day we raise the expectations of blind people because low expectations create obstacles between blind people and our dreams. You can live the life you want. Blindness is not what holds you back.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
I use NFB Newsline when reading Hammond Northwest Times.
Using NFB Newsline, I read the Christian Science magazine.
Dad, you read Jerusalem Post too.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Live the life you want. Read NFB Newsline.
It's free.
I want to welcome you back to the National Federation of the Blind Indiana Newsline show. With Dr. Reed from Ball State University, you've heard a lot of her travels and journey, and it is serious. It is for real about the impact that blindness has in our society and some of the systemic problems that we have with just being citizens. So, Florence, you want to share a little bit?
Well, I'd like to ask you, Dr. Reed, do you have any closing statements that you would like to leave with the audience today?
I think the one thing I would like to leave is to let our young people know not to give up. Try to find someone that can operate as an advocate, provide, understand who you are, what your strengths are. Sometimes we are focused on what we cannot do, and others are focused on what we cannot do and not what we are capable of doing. So be a strong advocate. Make sure you are well informed and are making choices that help you get as much experience prior to leaving high school or college as possible. So I did a lot of volunteer. Sometimes that's the way you have to get that experience. It may not always be paid, but it's experience that you can put on a resume, and you can advocate for yourself and what you need.
Well, thank you so very much for those comments, and we'll be back with Dr. Reed next week for more of her powerful story. Stay tuned and rejoin us next week.
The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. For more information, go to nfb-in.org or call 855-963-6476. That's 855-963-6476. The National Federation of the Blind encourages you to live the life you want.